The morning light spills through the window. A soft breeze touches the curtains, carrying the scent of jasmine. Eleanor sits quietly in her living room chair. Her hands rest gently on her knees, her shoulders slightly tense. For years, she has ignored the stiffness creeping into her joints. It started with small things, brushing her hair, reaching for a teacup. Now, even hanging clothes feels like a distant memory. She sighs, thinking it must be age, just time doing its work. But today feels different. The light seems warmer, the air softer, her heart more curious. She remembers how freely she once moved, how alive her arms once felt. There's a quiet wish in her to feel that freedom again. Not to be young, but to be able. She closes her eyes, breathing in slowly, letting her shoulders drop. The world outside hums gently, distant birds, a passing car, a soft life. Eleanor lifts her chin and smiles to herself. Maybe stiffness isn't the end. Maybe it's an invitation. An invitation to move slower, to listen closer, to begin again. Eleanor wakes early, just as the sky begins to blush with the first hint of dawn. Her house is quiet, wrapped in the soft hum of morning silence. The kettle sings faintly in the kitchen, but she isn't rushing to make tea. She sits by the window, her favorite spot, where the light always feels kind. Her cat Oliver curls at her feet, purring in sleepy approval. Outside, the garden glows with dew, tiny mirrors on petals and leaves. She watches them shimmer and thinks of how time has softened her edges. Years ago, she moved quickly, with purpose, always in motion. Now every action feels like a small decision, a slow negotiation. Her shoulders ache quietly, a reminder of yesterday's reached too far. She rolls them slightly, but the stiffness is stubborn, heavy like wet cloth. There was a time she believed pain was a sign of strength. Now she sees it differently, a message, not a punishment. She remembers when she first noticed the change. It was after a long winter, when the garden waited patiently beneath the frost. She had gone to prune the roses and realized her arm wouldn't lift fully. A dull tug, a frozen pause, a sigh she didn't mean to make. At first she ignored it, as people often do. She thought it will pass, but it didn't. Days turned to weeks, and reaching became a memory. The doctor called it stiffness, common for her age, nothing serious. He suggested rest, but rest only made her stiller. Her body, once her ally, began to feel like something separate. She learned to avoid high shelves, to ask for help with small things. But asking always felt heavier than the jar she couldn't reach. So she adapted, quietly, gracefully, or so she told herself. Yet deep inside, she missed the easy rhythm of movement. She missed hanging laundry beneath the sun, stretching to pin each cloth. She missed waving to her neighbor across the fence. She missed hugging her grandson tightly, without hesitation. Every lost motion felt like a goodbye whispered to herself. One evening she sat watching the sunset, its orange glow soft on her face. She realized that her body was asking not for rest, but for attention. Not for stillness, but for care. And maybe for forgiveness too. So she made a small promise, a quiet one between her and her breath. She would start again, gently, without expectation. She would learn to listen to her body's smallest voice. That night she set out her chair in the living room, ready for morning. She smiled at how simple it looked, that empty chair waiting in the dark. It wasn't a gym or a class or a new routine. It was a beginning. When the sun rose the next day, she sat again, just as she had planned. The light warmed her shoulders. Her breath moved slowly, evenly. She lifted her arms a little, then a little more. Each motion was soft, hesitant, but filled with quiet courage. For the first time in years, Eleanor felt something awaken. It wasn't just her shoulders. It was hope, gentle, steady, and alive. The shoulder is a quiet marvel. It moves in ways few other joints can, up, down, around, and beyond. It carries the weight of our gestures, our reach, our daily rhythms. For Eleanor, it had always been something she never noticed, until the day it began to resist her. That resistance was subtle at first, like a whisper turning into a pause. Lifting a cup, hanging a coat, brushing her hair, each became slower. She wondered why something so simple now required thought. Her doctor had explained that the shoulder is a floating joint. Unlike the hip, it isn't rooted deep in bone. It's held together by muscles, tendons, and tiny threads of effort. Those threads tighten when we stop moving, when time asks us to rest too long. Eleanor liked to think of them as strings on a musical instrument. When neglected, they go out of tune. And her shoulders, once an orchestra of motion, had grown silent. She remembered when she used to paint, standing by her easel for hours. Each brushstroke came from her shoulders' rhythm, her arms' easy sway. Now she missed that fluid dance of motion. But she didn't feel angry. She felt curious. Curiosity, she realized, was softer than frustration. It didn't demand answers, it invited them. So she began to learn what her shoulders truly were. She traced her fingers along her collarbone, feeling where movement began. She pressed lightly, where tension hid beneath the skin. Each touch told her a small story of effort, of endurance. Her shoulders had been carrying years of quiet burden, lifting, reaching, holding. They had carried grief, too, in the way she tensed when life got heavy, and joy in the way they lifted when she laughed. Our bodies remember what we forget, and hers was remembering everything. Eleanor began to understand that stiffness wasn't just physical. It was emotional, layered, woven into memory. Each tight muscle held a moment, unspoken, unprocessed, but still there. The body, she thought, is a storyteller too. So she listened. Every small ache had something to say. Every slow motion was a word, in a language she was relearning. She found comfort in that discovery. It meant there was still a way back, a path she could walk slowly. Her shoulders didn't need to be perfect, they just needed kindness. In the evenings, she would sit with her palms open, breathing deeply. She imagined light moving through her shoulders, melting the old stiffness. It wasn't magic. It was awareness, steady and patient. Sometimes she thought about how long she had ignored herself. The years of moving without noticing, doing without feeling. Now each moment of stillness felt sacred. A conversation between her and her body. The shoulder, she realized, wasn't broken, just unheard. And in her quiet living room, with the hum of the evening around her, Eleanor finally began to listen. Morning arrives gently, with light spilling across the floor like water. Eleanor sits in her chair again, the same one she prepared the night before. The house is quiet except for the ticking clock on the wall. Oliver, her cat, stretches lazily beside her and then curls up again. She straightens her back and lets her palms rest on her thighs. The air feels cool against her skin, alive with the scent of morning. For a moment she simply sits, letting her thoughts drift like clouds. Then she breathes in through her nose, long and slow. The air fills her chest, widening the space between her shoulders. She holds it for a heartbeat, then lets it fall away. Her shoulders drop a little lower, as if sighing in relief. Again she breathes soft, steady, intentional. Each exhale feels like letting go of something unseen. She doesn't rush. There is no destination here, only presence. She rolls her shoulders forward in slow, gentle circles. Small motions, like ripples in calm water. The movement feels strange at first, stiff, unfamiliar. But she continues, one breath per circle, patient as a tide. She can feel warmth spreading from her back into her arms. Her body begins to wake, cell by cell, quietly grateful for attention. The morning light moves across her face, and she follows its rhythm. Inhale, her shoulders rise, graceful as the swell of a wave. Exhale, they drop, melting into softness again. She thinks of all the mornings she rushed through before. No time to feel, no pause to breathe, just movement without meaning. Now she moves as though each second matters. As though her breath is a kind of music her body remembers. She tilts her head slightly to one side, stretching the space beneath her neck. A small pull, nothing sharp, only gentle invitation. Then she switches sides, slow and steady. The warmth deepens. Her fingers tingle faintly, as though energy has returned to her hands. She smiles at the thought, her body saying thank you. She brings her shoulders up once more, closer to her ears, and then releases. The drop feels like releasing years of quiet tension. Eleanor doesn't think of exercise anymore. She thinks of kindness, of breath, of care. This isn't a task, it's a conversation. Each inhale speaks of life returning. Each exhale carries away the weight of yesterday. Her cat stirs and looks up at her, curious about the slow rhythm. She laughs softly, the sound light and new. The laugh makes her shoulders lift again, naturally, beautifully. She realizes movement can be joyful even when small. There's no pain now, just awareness. She closes her eyes and feels her heart beat, calm and steady. The warmth spreads further, reaching her fingertips, her chest, her breath. In this quiet space, she feels whole, no rush, no judgment. Just a woman, breathing, listening, and learning how to move again. The world outside can wait. For now, the rhythm of breath is enough. Eleanor sits a little taller now, her back steady, her breath calm and deep. The room feels alive with soft morning light and quiet intention. She looks at her hands resting gently on her knees, palms open, relaxed. There is no rush, no expectation, only curiosity and care. She lifts her right arm slowly, as though moving through water. The motion is small, deliberate, tender. Her shoulder hums with effort but not pain. She pauses halfway, breathing in, feeling the weight of her own patience. Then she exhales, lowering her arm with grace. It feels like releasing something old, something heavy. She lifts the other arm, the left, matching the rhythm of her breath. The movement is smoother now, her body remembering a forgotten path. Each slow rise and fall carries quiet music, a melody made of control. Her breath becomes the metronome guiding every gentle motion. She smiles, noticing how alive her chest feels, how open her back becomes. This isn't about reaching higher, it's about reaching inward. She stretches both arms forward, fingers pointed softly to the horizon. Then she lets them float down, like leaves drifting through still air. Her joints whisper their approval, not loud but steady, honest. Eleanor circles her shoulders again, slower this time, smoother. She feels the small clicks of movement returning, the subtle freedom. Each circle writes a message in the air, I am moving again. The stiffness has not vanished, but it no longer feels like a wall. It feels like a door, and she's learning how to open it. She tilts her elbows outward, lifting gently, holding for 2 breaths. Then releases, letting gravity do the rest. Her body sways slightly, following the rhythm of its own story. The warmth grows beneath her skin, not heat but renewal. She moves her hands behind her head, fingers interlaced softly. The stretch expands her chest, waking the space between her shoulder blades. A slow inhale fills her lungs like a rising tide. A soft exhale empties them, calm and cleansing. She lowers her arms again, resting them on her lap. The quiet hum of effort lingers, but it feels comforting. For the first time in a long while, she trusts her body to respond. Each small stretch feels like a conversation, a rediscovery. Her mind, once tangled with doubt, begins to soften too. She realizes movement is not just physical, it's emotional permission. Permission to heal. Permission to change. She closes her eyes and lifts both arms one more time. Not far, not fast, just enough to remind herself she can. The air feels light against her skin, carrying the scent of morning. She breathes out, smiling, her shoulders floating freely beside her breath. Oliver meows softly, as if applauding from the floor. Eleanor laughs, lowering her arms and patting his head. The sound of her laughter fills the room like sunlight on glass. She feels strong, not in muscle but in spirit. The slow stretch has done more than wake her shoulders. It has reminded her that patience can move mountains, one breath at a time. Days begin to pass, and Eleanor's mornings take on a new rhythm. Her chair waits by the window, always in the same pool of light. She no longer hesitates before sitting down. It has become her quiet ritual, her time for breath and motion. Each day she moves with the same care, the same calm intention. Some mornings her shoulders feel lighter, like wings ready to unfold. Other days the stiffness lingers, slow and stubborn. But she no longer feels discouraged. She knows that healing is not a straight road. It bends, pauses, and meanders just like breath. Her movements have grown steadier, her circles smoother. When she reaches for the teacup now, her arm rises with ease. The little victories surprise her, small, invisible, but deeply felt. She pours her tea and smiles at how simple it seems again. Not effortless but alive. Consistency has become her quiet teacher. She understands now that progress hides in repetition. Each morning stretch builds on the last, layering strength upon patience. The difference is subtle but undeniable. Her posture has changed, more open, more certain. She walks through the house with a softness that feels new. The act of lifting, turning, reaching no longer feels foreign. It feels familiar, like returning home. She keeps a small journal by the window, noting how she feels each day. Sometimes she writes only a few words, smooth, tight, lighter. Sometimes she draws little circles to mark her shoulder rolls. Those pages have become a map of her quiet recovery. In the evenings, she reflects on how far she's come without realizing it. The garden calls to her again, gentle and green. She spends time pruning her roses, lifting her arms carefully among the blooms. The movement is steady, graceful, almost meditative. She no longer measures her progress in degrees or numbers. She measures it in how free she feels. There's freedom in reaching for the sunlight, in watering the roots. Freedom in not fearing the pull of a stretch. Sometimes her neighbor waves, and she waves back without thinking. That simple gesture fills her chest with quiet pride. Her shoulders, once heavy with memory, now carry something lighter, joy. She begins to understand that movement isn't something we lose with age. We only forget to listen to the rhythm that remains inside us. Every breath, every lift, every slow repetition, it's all part of remembering. Eleanor's body has become her teacher, her mirror, her companion. It tells her that persistence is softer than force, that care is stronger than speed, that slow is not weak, slow is wise. When she finishes her morning stretches, she always pauses in silence. She closes her eyes and lets gratitude wash over her shoulders. They feel warm now, strong and beautifully alive. She whispers softly to herself, almost like a prayer. Thank you, body, you never stopped trying. And in that moment, she knows she hasn't just restored movement. She has restored trust, the gentle faith that healing always finds its way home. Evening settles softly around the house, painting the walls in shades of gold. Eleanor sits by the window, the same place where it all began. Outside, the garden hums with the quiet rhythm of crickets. Her shoulders rest easily now, her breath flowing without effort. The stiffness that once ruled her mornings has loosened its grip. She moves her arms gently, circling them in the fading light. The motion feels like memory, smooth, quiet, and full of peace. She never thought such small movement could carry so much meaning. But here she is, feeling more whole than she has in years. Each breath feels like a thread, weaving calm through her body. She remembers the woman she was when she started, uncertain, tired, afraid. Now she feels steady, patient, and deeply grateful. Her shoulders no longer ache for strength, they rest in trust. Every inch of regained movement feels like forgiveness. Forgiveness for the years she ignored her body's voice. Forgiveness for the times she demanded too much or too little. She has learned that the body speaks quietly but truthfully. It asks only for presence, for care, for time. As she stretches once more, her breath follows like a companion. Inhale, light enters her chest. Exhale, everything heavy leaves. The air smells faintly of rain, a promise of renewal. Eleanor closes her eyes and lets her shoulders sink into stillness. The warmth there feels alive, a pulse of gratitude beneath her skin. She thinks about what movement really means. It isn't just lifting or reaching. It's permission, permission to live gently inside one's body. To grow old with grace, not surrender. To move slower but deeper. She smiles, remembering her first clumsy stretch weeks ago. How heavy her arms had felt, how unsure her breath was. Now the same motion feels light, like floating through air. Her body has become her friend again, not a stranger to endure. She whispers softly, "We made it, didn't we?" The words drift into the room, tender and true. Oliver, her cat, jumps onto her lap, curling in quiet approval. She strokes his fur, her shoulders moving with gentle ease. The moment feels perfect, not grand, not loud, but peaceful. She realizes that healing isn't about returning to who she was. It's about meeting who she is now, slower, wiser, softer. The strength she found was never in muscle or motion. It lived in her patience, her breath, her faith in small beginnings. The light outside fades into a deep, calm blue. Eleanor stands, stretches once more, and looks at her reflection. Her posture is open, her shoulders balanced, her eyes kind. There's no sign of struggle, only quiet confidence. She walks toward the kitchen, her steps unhurried, her body aligned. The teacup waits for her, and she lifts it with effortless grace. Steam rises, and she smiles at the simple beauty of the moment. Movement has returned, yes, but so has peace. In the soft rhythm of breath and stillness, Eleanor has found home again. The evening quiet wraps around Eleanor like a warm blanket. Her body feels light, steady, and kind. She sits for a moment, listening to the rhythm of her own breath. It moves easily now, flowing like calm water through her chest. She thinks of all the mornings that led here, each one a quiet step. No rush, no miracle, just patience layered over time. Her shoulders no longer whisper pain, they hum with peace. She smiles, knowing the journey was never about perfection. It was about presence, being here, in this soft, breathing moment. Outside, the first stars appear, faint and gentle in the dark. Eleanor closes her eyes and lets gratitude settle deep within her. She knows she will wake tomorrow and stretch again, slowly, lovingly. Because movement, she's learned, is not something we finish. It's something we return to, again and again. She whispers a quiet thank you to her body, her breath, her courage. The room feels full of life, calm and whole. And as the night deepens, she smiles one last time. Her shoulders relax completely. She has come home to herself.